So I thought I'd start out talking about Godzilla vs. Kong. The trailer just dropped, and I really liked this trailer. It surprised me. But I'm still going to be guarded. I'm still going to keep my expectations low because the trailer for the 2014 Godzilla was amazing. The teaser trailer was fantastic. The film itself was a goddamn disappointment. So much so that I even don't like calling it Godzilla. I prefer to call it Goddamn Zilla because it was that disappointing of a movie. And Godzilla King of Monsters, it had a cool trailer too. The movie was a little bit of a disappointment as well. So, just because the trailer is good, that doesn't automatically mean the movie's going to be good, but it's a solid first impression. And it got me off the fence when it comes to Godzilla vs. Kong because I like the vibe of the trailer. I like that it looks like a fun, over the top monster basher. That's what I wanted from it. Yes, I am worried that it's going to have too much of a focus on the human characters, as is a lot of other people. I'm worried about how Adam Wingard is going to handle things when it comes to the different plot threads, when it comes to making Godzilla into some kind of foe for Kong or vice versa. And I'm also wondering how they're going to have those two team up and whether or not they're going to be fighting Mechagodzilla. It seems like that's going to be the case, and it makes sense because Mechagodzilla was mentioned in Godzilla King of Monsters. So it makes sense that Mechagodzilla would be the next villain. I think Rodan's going to also be involved somehow, and I don't know if Mothra's going to be involved as well. So it seems like there's a lot of monsters here. So I don't know how they're going to balance everything, but I'm definitely willing to give it a shot. I was always willing to give this a shot. I was curious about it from the get-go. And after seeing the trailer, yeah, I am definitely uh, more than a little bit excited for this film. I'm still gonna keep my expectations low, but I am I'm I'm looking forward to it even more than I was after hearing about the concept because it looks like an epic film. It really does, and it would be a damn shame if people can't see it in IMAX. But it seems like that's going to be the case. Speaking of films that are probably not going to be in theaters, I checked out the news, and predictably, a ton of films that I already talked about in the first two parts of my discussion on the films of 2021 have been pushed. Some have even been pushed to 2022. I think Morbius has been pushed to January of next year. So, yeah, I say it's predictable because I saw this coming. We haven't really rolled out all the vaccines yet. We still aren't in a position where theaters are financially comfortable or feel like they're not in any sort of trouble. So I don't even know if we're even going to get films in the theater this year. I think you're going to have a lot of delays. I think you're going to get more delays. And I think you're going to have studios begrudgingly dropping them onto their streaming services. I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know why Disney is not dropping Black Widow already in the next couple months or whatever, or in the summer, or somewhere when it comes to being dropped on Disney Plus. I don't know why they're not doing that. I don't get the whole let's wait because I don't think Black Widow's going to do that well, and I really you would think that since this is going to be like a ton of fucking delays for these studios in terms of their upcoming projects, you would think that they would look at all of these films that they've already made that are already ready to be dropped onto streaming services and just make a deal and just drop them on the streaming service. Take the bullet, take the hit, because you're just delaying things. You're making things worse for your studio and for your potential future because if things continue the way they are, they're just going to have to drop projects anyway, or they're going to have to slash budgets, or they're going to have to change things around. And instead of it being a blockbuster film, it's going to be a middle budget movie, or they're going to have to retool things and be like, I guess maybe we need to do a streaming series of Deadpool with Ryan Reynolds because we can't fucking afford to do Deadpool 3. So it's one of those things where, yeah, there's a lot of flux going on here. And I feel that the studios, it's understandable that they're trying and just desperately clinging on to this theater model right now. But most of the theater chains are swimming in debt at the moment and are barely staying afloat. So unless you can throw them a fucking lifesaver and bring them to shore and find a way to get them on solid ground again, it's no guarantee that there will even be enough theaters open to be able to make whatever profit you're waiting for in the first place. And when it comes to trailers, um, other than Godzilla versus Kong, there really isn't a lot of trailer content. But I just thought I'd look up some trailers here to see if there's like a list or something. If you heard anything there, that's because the movie clips autoplays trailers, so it's autoplaying the opening of Godzilla vs. Kong. I really can't think of anything. I mean, there's the film Boss Level, which is supposed to come out last year. That's getting a release. It's got Mel Gibson in it. I think Scott Adkins is in it. Um, it actually looks like it might be a fun action movie. You have some horror film called Dreamcatcher. It looks generic as hell. The only thing that really stands out about that trailer is the killer and the mask that he's wearing, and the fact that it stars um, YouTuber Olivia Sway from Smosh in a small role. But other than that, like, there really is nothing else about that that stands out. And I don't really have anything else to say about trailers. Now we get to the movie news portion, and I mentioned Deadpool 3 earlier, and I might as well mention it again. Um, yes, I've seen the news that Kevin Feige, he has come out and he said that Deadpool 3 is going to be rated R. It's being worked on by Lizzie Molyneux and Wendy Molyneux, who worked on Bob's Burgers. And this is Kevin, who is quoted here. He says, "It will be rated R. And we are working on a script right now, and Ryan's overseeing the script right now. It will not be filming this year. Duh. Ryan is very busy, very successful actor. We've got a number of things we've already announced that we now have to make, but it's exciting for it to have begun. You now have to make. We still don't have vaccines rolled out. We still don't have things figured out in terms of all this COVID stuff. I don't think you're going to make them now either." So the plan is for Deadpool 3 to come out in 2022. I would say that's that's very ambitious, a little too ambitious. And I would say that it's more than likely going to be closer to 2023 or 2024. So, but yeah, they said it probably won't hit theaters until 2023 at the earliest, which is understandable, but it might not, it might even be longer than that. There's going to be a lot of delays. There's going to be a lot of projects that are going to be put on the shelf or just canceled altogether. Because Hollywood is going to lose so much fucking money. They're going to lose, they've already lost way more than a lot of these studios can handle last year. And I think this year they're going to lose even more, and it's just going to be a clusterfuck. So, yeah, Kevin, he says, again, a very different type of character in the MCU, and Ryan is a force of nature, which is just awesome to see him bring that character to life. This is a whole case of I'll believe it when I see it. I've always felt that way about an R-rated Deadpool movie and the MCU. Kevin's saying all the right things doesn't necessarily mean that that's the direction that they're actually going to go with. Especially if they have to slash budgets, especially if they have to cut corners. And also, it just goes against everything that they've been known to do lately. It goes against their track record, it goes against everything. So it would be really surprising if they did go that route. And I hope they do. But just because he says that's the plan, that doesn't mean anything. That might have been the plan for New Mutants, and Fox changed gears. That might have been the plan for other potential Marvel projects, but things changed. For instance, Scott Derrickson was on board with Doctor Strange 2, The Multiverse of Madness. He wanted to make it a more straightforward kind of horror movie, and he wanted to really push the boundaries. I don't know if he meant to do it rated R, but even if he didn't mean to make it rated R, Kevin and the MCU was having none of that. They were not allowing him to take it that far. So why do I think for a second that they're going to allow Ryan Reynolds and the Molyneux sisters to create a R-rated, raunchy, offensive, completely boundary-breaking film in the MCU? It doesn't make any sense, especially after they turned down what Scott Derrickson's vision was with the Multiverse of Madness. So, yeah, it really is a case of I need to wait and see. Because you could say everything you want to say, but it doesn't mean anything until I actually see the finished product and it actually is rated R. And even if it is rated R, I still am not super excited or really hopeful about it. Because I've seen nothing from Disney or the MCU to suggest that they can even create a effective, let alone good R-rated Deadpool movie without getting involved in censoring something or another. I mean, this is a studio that when they had a collaboration with another film studio, for instance, in Hollywood Pictures, they wouldn't let people who were working on films like Judge Dredd make the film as violent and as over the top and close to the comics as they wanted it to be. And that was back in 1995. Oh, that was a long time ago. But there's nothing that I've seen from Disney or the MCU or Marvel to suggest that they're not going to do a similar thing here. So it's a whole lot of I need to see more. I need to see a trailer. I need to see some more confirmation other than Kevin speaking to some newspaper or to some reporter and saying all the right things. Because there's been plenty of instances where people have said the right things, but then they went in a completely different direction later because they didn't have faith in the initial stance that they took. So now I want to talk about some upcoming DVD and Blu-ray releases before I get to the portion of the video where I show some of the most recent titles that I picked up over my travels and through online. So, Kino Lorber, they're going to be doing a release of CB4, the cult classic comedy featuring Chris Rock. I really enjoy that movie. I find it to be really funny and clever, and I'm looking forward to seeing that Blu-ray. There's an interview, I believe, with the director that's going to be on there, and I heard they're trying to get Chris Rock, but that doesn't mean that he's actually going to do it. I hope he does. I really do hope that he does it, because I really want to hear Chris's thoughts on CB4. So Kino Lorber's doing CB4. For those of you who didn't get the opportunity to pick up Second Sight's excellent release of Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 film, they're doing a re-release that's a standard edition that still has all the same features, but it doesn't have all of the extra stuff that the limited box set had. So if you missed out, you couldn't get the other set, you couldn't afford it, they are coming out with a cheaper set. I think like the Blu-ray is going to range around $35-$40, which is way less than over 100 compared to the limited edition set. The 4K set's going to cost you more, but if you just want to get like the Blu-ray, it'll cost you a lot less than the Blu-ray set or even the 4K set did from last year. Vinegar Syndrome, it looks like they're going to be doing Scanner Cop in the future. There's really not much details other than the fact that they're going to be doing it. Uh, Anything else is to be determined when it comes to the release. I read something somewhere that Paramount is going to be doing the Indiana Jones films in 4K in a box set sometime this year. I am super thrilled and excited for that. And hopefully they do a new remaster of all of them, especially the first film, because the initial remaster that they did for the Blu-ray, they messed around with the color timing, and I hope they fix that with the 4K release. And there's a few other films that I think are announced for a potential 4K release from Sony and a few other places. But I forgot exactly which ones there. Oh, Gattaca's one of them, but I already mentioned that before. And so yeah, I would say CB4, the re-release of Dawn of the Dead for those of you who weren't able to get it. Speaking of a lot of these upcoming releases, I've noticed something. You have not heard a single announcement from Scream Factory. The last time we heard anything when it comes to a new release is their upcoming release of Event Horizon, which is stuck in limbo. It might as well be floating in space right now. So other than that, and their recent 4K releases that they came out with of Prince of Darkness and They Live, which were just the same transfer from the Studio Canal releases, you haven't really heard a lot in terms of new releases from Scream Factory. So I'm wondering if COVID is really hitting them hard right now. It probably is. It's hitting a lot of these studios hard. But I'm wondering if it's hitting them hard specifically. And speaking of things that are hit hard, I know RoboDoc has been delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed for what seems like the end of fucking time. But it's been delayed again because of COVID. And over in the UK, things are a lot different than here in the US, where they are just in another lockdown right now. So it makes things even more complicated. So it's understandable that their delays are even more extended. But at this point, it's been 5 fucking years. And it's not the only project that studio has been working on. So at some point, you got to shit or get off the pot. I mean, 5 years is ridiculous, even for a crowd-funded documentary. And speaking of crowd-funded documentaries, the folks behind In Search of Darkness 1 and 2, their latest project, In Search of Tomorrow, you want to know who they got for that? They got Peter Weller. They managed to get Peter Weller to do little interviews for that documentary, but he wouldn't do anything for RoboDoc. There's no way in hell the people from In Search of Tomorrow paid whatever his ridiculous asking price is. So when you come right down to it, this proves that Peter Weller just didn't want to do RoboDoc at any cost, at any price, unless it was through the fucking roof. And even then, he would have done it reluctantly. And it sucks, because that's supposed to be like the most comprehensive documentary about RoboCop. And yes, they probably ask him about the first movie, and he probably wouldn't say anything that he hasn't said already. But when it comes to the second movie, you haven't really heard a lot from him other than the bits from way back in the day. So that would have been really nice to hear what Peter Weller has to say about RoboCop 2, why it didn't work, what happened with the deleted scenes, why he wasn't happy with the finished product. Literally anything. You could get his thoughts on RoboCop 3. You could also get his thoughts on the whole WCW RoboCop ridiculousness. And really explain once and for all whether or not it was him in the suit. But no. And if Peter Weller is not going to sit down and talk about these things, no one will ever know. No one will ever know about any of this. And if they just got him on In Search of Tomorrow just for him to talk about why this movie is good or why this movie is bad, that's such a waste of Peter Weller's time. And I don't understand why he would want to do that anyway. Maybe he'll talk about Leviathan. That would be cool. Maybe he will at least talk about Leviathan. My guess, though, is he will just say some generic things throughout the documentary. Like, this was a good movie. I really like this one. Or this one I wasn't too fond of. Or this scene was cool. And just be like any of the other talking heads in this documentary series, which are basically just the I Love series for horror and sci-fi movies. And you know, the I Love the 80s and 90s and all that stuff have their place. They're entertaining, they're enjoyable. But what makes those so entertaining and enjoyable is the variety of topics that they discuss. They don't just discuss films. They talk about movies, but they also talk about TV shows. They talk about fads. They talk about clothes. They talk about toys. They talk about all kinds of stuff. With these In Search of films, it's just a bunch of talking heads talking about this movie was cool, this movie sucked, and that gets old after a while. I heard that the second one is a little bit better in terms of it actually bothers to have more than just people talking about, I liked this movie, and I didn't like this movie, and they didn't have as much of an overdose of dead meat. But with this, I mean, maybe someday down the road I might give it a watch just to see what Peter Weller has to say. But it's so frustrating to me when it comes to Weller because he does KFC commercials, embarrasses the fucking character and the legacy of RoboCop. He does Mortal Kombat, which is cool. And then he does this. But he says no to RoboDoc. Why are you being such a RoboCock, Peter Weller? So, yeah, as you can see, I'm not too happy with Peter Weller's decision making as of late. I mean, he's even been doing these cameos. You know, where you pay a certain amount of money and he'll say something on a camera and you can use it for like a birthday present or something. He's been doing those. And he's not going to do RoboDoc, not even talk about RoboCop 2. I just don't get it. Like, what's your problem, man? Just swallow your fucking pride. Share your stories. Because if you don't share these stories in RoboDoc or in others' interviews, no one's ever going to know about them. They're just going to die with you.